All right, it's the final race of the NASCAR season for 2024. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. It's been a fun year. Crazy that it's already the last video. Going to miss NASCAR. Luckily, it's a short off season, and we'll get racing back in February for 2025. So thank you guys, as always, for all the support. We're going to break down the slate one final time. But if you're new here, if you've been following along, with us this year, if you haven't, if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel, that would be greatly appreciated. It's been our goal since the beginning to get up to 1,000. Slowly but surely, we're inching closer to that. If you want access to this, you just want to hang out, ask us some lineup questions, engage with us. You can follow us on X. It's at FastCarsFM. That's where I post the spreadsheet. And finally, hey, if you had a good year, you just want to say thanks, whatever it might be, there's a couple of different links there for PayPal and Venmo in the support tab. So getting into the race preview and initial thoughts. Again, thanks for a great 2024 season. Hopefully you guys had a good year. Hopefully you had fun. Thanks for tuning in and following along. But for this race specifically, it is a short track. I think we have 312 laps or so. Because of that, it's going to be a relatively high scoring slate. You really want to focus on who those dominators you think are going to be. Trying to get 2 to 3 dominators, I would say, in your line is usually what is best for these types of tracks. And then trying to build around them with value plays, whether it's good finishing potential, maybe good place differential plays, or maybe some combination of the two. So what am I looking at? Really, I'm just looking at the short flat track data, specifically in the next gen era, weighting a little bit more towards the 2024 season and how they're performing this year on those tracks. And then you can also dive in and look at practice. How did they run this weekend specifically? So that's kind of what I'm looking at. And then once we get to the driver breakdown here, move this over a tad. So the top 4 drivers, price tag wise, you got Blaney, Byron, Logano, and Reddick. I highlighted them in blue just to designate that they are a championship contender. I'm excited that the 24 car made it in. As a fan, that's who I'm going to be rooting for. So I'm excited to just sit back and watch the race today. Hopefully it's a good one. I know sometimes the short flat tracks, especially in the next gen era, don't always produce the best racing, but it's a championship race. So going to, just enjoy it, have fun. I got all my Ironman crowns from DK. So I'm going to be putting all those into the slate today and, just going out with hopefully a bang. But you got Blaney, Byron, Logano, and Reddick. To me, Blaney's going to be the top option. Everything that you look at is going to say play Ryan Blaney. He offers place differential upside. He was the quickest across the 5, 10, and 15 lap averages. Every single next gen Phoenix race, he's finished inside the top 5. He also comes in with the highest driver rating on these track types. Like everything is saying play Blaney today. Now it's NASCAR DFS. We know anything can happen. That doesn't mean he's going to be a lock by any means. It doesn't mean he's going to be the best play on the slate. But from a projection standpoint, he should be. He's going to project the highest with the place differential upside, the lap leading upside, and the high finishing potential upside that he has. So there's a very strong chance that Ryan Blaney is a back-to-back, NASCAR Cup champion. Then you got Byron and Logano there. Byron and Logano, I like them, but not as much as Blaney. So if you only had to pick one, or if you want to prioritize a guy up here, it's going to be Blaney. I think Byron and Logano, make sense for different reasons. So Byron, I would say, is a little bit more of a GPP play. I don't know how much ownership he's really going to get. He was 3rd quickest in the 15 lap average, and it was actually 4th quickest in the single lap. So we know his car is going to be good. He offers a little bit of place differential upside. But the nice thing about Joey Logano is he starts on the front row, and he starts right next to Martin Truex Jr. And Truex has been pretty tough to trust this year, especially on the pole. He's kind of disappointed us. Doesn't mean he's going to disappoint us again, but there's a good chance that Logano can go out there, be the early lap leader, lead a bulk of stage 1, and then maybe Ryan Blaney comes through and picks up in stage 2 or whatever it potentially might be. So Logano's pretty good on the short flat tracks. Byron is as well, but they're going to be a little bit. I would probably lean on Logano just because of where he starts, and then try to pair him with Blaney if I had to pick one route. But I like all of those plays today. some combination of those three, I think, is a good way to start. Tyler Reddick is another championship four driver, but I'm just really not getting to him. He doesn't really run that well on these track types. He has struggled, and there's actually just other plays I'd rather get to, even though they aren't championship four drivers. So like Christopher Bell, for example, I think his ownership's going to come in lower than it normally would be because a lot of people are just going to click on those championship four drivers. But he actually ranks second in driver rating on these track types behind Ryan Blaney. So I think he's a great pivot option off of Byron, off of Logano. You know, there was a chance there was 30 minutes or however much time went by when we didn't know if it was going to be Byron or Bell. So, he very easily could have been a championship four contender. He's going to want to go out there and run well. Then you got Larson too. I mean, Larson's right in the same boat. I don't think his ownership's going to be as high because people are going to play Blaney, Byron, Logano, and Reddick. But I think Bell and Larson make a lot of sense, especially for tournaments. And in the next gen era too, we haven't seen like the championship four drivers are going to run well. That's who you're going to suspect wins the race. But especially in the next gen era, that hasn't always been the case. We've seen other drivers win this race. We've seen other drivers, quote unquote, dominate, lead laps. So just because they aren't in the championship doesn't mean they're, not capable for DFS purposes. So I really like Blaney. He's my top option. I like Byron and Logano. With the upside that they offer, I think Bell and Larson make a lot of sense from pivot standpoints. And then Reddick, I'm just really not getting to. A driver I do want to get to, though, is going to be Denny Hamlin. Not everyone ran 20, plus laps, consecutive laps in practice. But of those who did, Hamlin was quickest in the 20 and the 25 lap averages, suggesting he has a pretty good long run car today. He also offers some place differential upside. He's a little bit cheaper than some of those other options up there. So I really like Hamlin. Now, Elliott has been consistent, but when we talk in terms of DFS, we need lap leaders. We've seen him lead laps, but we haven't really seen him take over races. So my concern is he starts fifth. He might have a good NASCAR day, but in terms of DFS, I don't really project him to be a primary lap leader or a guy that's clicking off a bunch of fast laps today. So kind of the same thing with Ross Chastain. He did win this race last year. Him and Blaney almost got into it. Blaney was screaming at him on the radio, which was funny. But in terms of DFS, he just starts a little bit too far forward. I don't really think he can take over and lead laps. And then you got Truex starting on the pole. It's his last race. He starts on the pole again. He's been very tough to trust, especially when we've seen him on the pole. The nice thing about Truex is his price tag. He's only $9,000, so you can really build a little bit more of a balanced lineup having Truex in your line. But I think it's going to be tough to keep Joey Logano, who starts right next to him, behind Truex. So I don't mind Truex. I'm hesitant to play him. I think as the race plays out, other drivers are going to move their way forward, and this team just always struggles for one reason or another. Ty Gibbs, kind of in the same boat as Elliott and Chastain, starts up front. I just don't really think he'll have that extra oomph, to get forward. So I'm really not getting there a ton. I really do like the RFK cars of Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher. Both of them actually finished top 5 in the spring race in Phoenix. I think that's unlikely to happen again today. But they both start in the 20s. They both give you some nice place differential upside. So I don't mind them. I like them a lot in terms of, value options. Kyle Busch, I'm really not getting to. It's been just a tough year for him. He starts in the 20s. He probably finishes mid-pack. And then Chase Briscoe's more of a tournament option, low owned. You're building multiple lineups. You're trying to get different. We've seen him maintain his running position. He's definitely risky, and I don't think his ownership's going to be too high because I think everyone's going to play the place differential plays around him. Now Bubba Wallace is another guy I like. If you can't, get to Brad Keselowski, you can't get to Chris Buescher. Bubba Wallace makes a lot of sense to me. He starts 29th, gives you some place differential upside, good equipment. He's only $7,800. Bowman's a little bit more of a tournament play. Getting a Hendrick Motorsports car for only $7,700 is pretty good. And he starts 16th as well, so it gives you some place differential upside too. Probably isn't going to see a ton of ownership, so I think he makes a lot of sense for tournaments today. Cindric's kind of in the same boat as Briscoe. Cindric did win Gateway, which is a very similar track to Phoenix, and he qualified, and his practice times were pretty good. So again, more of a tournament play if you're building multiple lines, trying to get different, trying to get some lower owned plays in your lineup. So he kind of is in that same boat as Chase Briscoe. Now, Josh Berry did spin and hit the wall in qualifying. It wasn't a terrible hit, but because of that, he basically starts DFL. So he's going to give you a lot of place differential upside. He makes a lot of sense today. Suarez and Dillon, they're okay. I'd rather just get to the SHR cars down here. So, they're going to offer some place differential upside as well. Probably won't see maybe the same level of ownership that Josh Berry sees, but they're okay. I'd rather play Josh Berry. Then I like Ryan Preece a lot too. Pretty good on these short flat tracks. Starts 33rd. So you have a lot of good place differential plays, pretty cheap on the slate. So if you can't pay up for Brad Keselowski, you can't pay up for Christopher Buescher, you can't pay up for Bubba Wallace. Look at Josh Berry, look at Ryan Preece, look at Michael McDowell. Like these are a lot cheaper place differential plays that I think you can get in your line for, relatively similar upside projections. And maybe that allows you to upgrade, one of your 8 or 9K drivers to a 10K driver or another 9K driver that you think has some lap leading upside ability. So for me, it's really just, find your lap leaders and then try to build around them with the salary that you have left. Noah Gragson, I'm not really getting to. He starts mid-pack. I think he finishes mid-pack. Carson Hocevar, kind of in the same boat as Cindric and Briscoe, where more of a tournament option if you're trying to get different, build multiple lines. Definitely risky, but we've seen him run well. Ricky Stenhouse doesn't typically run too well on these short flat tracks. My fear is he starts deep, he finishes deep. Now, Michael McDowell was not good in practice and qualifying. However, his historical data at Phoenix in the next gen era specifically is pretty good. He's finished in the top 20 multiple times, sometimes even the top 15. I think a top 20 today is very doable from Michael McDowell. And starting 35th for only $6,400, I'll go there. I think Todd Gilliland also makes sense too. I just prefer Michael McDowell between the two of them, but those would be kind of my favorite, more or less punt options. And then I'm not really getting Eric Jones, John Hunter Nemechek. They just start a little bit too far forward. And once you get down to the bottom of the slate here, it's kind of ugly. If I had to pick one guy, it's probably going to be Zane Smith. He had top 20 practice times. We've seen him run better as of late, offer some decent place differential upside, but I think a lot of other people are going to be going there as well, ownership wise. But Justin Haley, he just starts a little bit too far forward for a punt option. There's a lot of risk there. Corey LaJoie, the Rick Ware racing cars are tough to trust. He starts 20th. Jimmy Johnson always struggles in the next gen era. Harrison Burton starts way too far forward. Hemrick, kind of starts too forward. Kaz Grala, I don't mind him, starting 31st. I wish he started a little bit deeper, but he gives you a lot of price savings. So you don't really need a ton out of him if you can land on those top options up front. And then Derek Krause starts too far forward. Jeb Burton was terribly slow. And then I'm concerned equipment-wise with Chad Fincham and JJ Yaley. So the bottom of the slate does not look good at all. But for me, I think Ryan Blaney is going to be your, favorite play. I think a lot of people are going to play him. I think playing Blaney, Byron, Logano, Bell, Hamlin, Truex, like those are the types of plays I'm building around today. And then depending on how much place differential or salary I have left, kind of determines what place differential plays I'm getting to. But I really like the RFK cars, I really like Bubba Wallace, Josh Berry, Preece, McDowell. But yeah, that'll be it. So thank you guys for a great 2024 season. Best of luck today. Enjoy the race. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you next year. We got to figure out what the 2025 plans are, if we'll continue, doing this or not. But anyways, best of luck today. And yeah, thanks.